Hello everyone, welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports for today's review as the Cheetahs beat the Pumas last night in Nelspruit. A fantastic, well, a very close game, a nail-biter really, 35 points to 31, and a game which I think the Pumas will look back and think that they definitely had it in them to win and to potentially take all the points, but unfortunately just couldn't quite capitalize, couldn't quite get over the line. You know, they had chance to put the game to bed. And I don't want to be too critical, but I think if you look at the two conversions missed by Devin Williams, as well as maybe what was pretty kickable penalty, the Pumas could have at least drawn the game last night and definitely had the capacity to win it, but you know, just couldn't get over the line. And a game which let's say was for the purists. You know, it was a hard game of sort of grunt versus grunt, pretty much an arm wrestle. I mean, you think of all the tries scored from Rolling Moors. It was such a tight game. I think besides Tian Meyer's try, there was no particularly enterprising loose play that led to a try. It was all very tightly contested, very much the packs that did most of the work. But I think, you know, credit has to go to the Cheetahs because they weathered an early storm and they managed to come back. But I also what I keep saying is that the ability to know how to win sounds like a really weird concept. You know, the whole idea of how do you know? I mean, do you know how to win? And I've said this about the Pumas before because they've had some really good starts and they've been in games where they could have taken more from it. But sometimes you just sort of wonder that they don't have the knowledge of how to get that victory, how to hang on to a lead. Because this is the second time where a team has come back from behind and beaten the Pumas in the end. So, look, 35 points to 31 is quite a close game. And before we sort of dissect exactly what went down, look at a couple of standout players and some of the stats from the game, please do subscribe to the channel, bottom right-hand corner. We are chasing 400 subscribers before the end of the year. We've got 12 days and 77 subscribers to go. So please do subscribe, smash the like button on the video as well. Jump in the comments, let me know what you thought of the game itself. Right, so if you look at some of the match stats, it was very, very even. Both teams scored 5 tries. The difference literally was that France Stan nailed the conversions and Devin Williams missed it. And I do think if you look at Devin Williams, he's not a natural fly half. And I think that kind of, the Pumas did kind of pay for that last night. I think, you know, a better goal kicker would have made quite a big difference. But it sounds stupid, but at the end of the day, you think of test match rugby, you think of being able to have someone who's going to slot his kicks every day, day in, day out. You know, something like a Morné Steyn who's usually very reliable. You know, Alton Yankee's become so reliable for the Lions over the years. And somewhere, an aspect of the game that Damian Willems has been criticised because they said his goal kick is not good enough. And the Pumas paid the price because if Devin Williams slotted both those conversions, it would have been a draw. Ginter Smuts came on towards the end of the game and started taking the kicks and he kicked a lot better. But if you look at the stats, it's all very even. Possession was 46% Pumas, 54% Cheetahs. Defenders beaten, 2 Pumas, 4 Cheetahs, 1 clean break for the Pumas and Cheetahs. All these stats are rugby pass, which sometimes are a bit wrong, but you know, it is what it is. It's the best thing we can find in terms of the Currie Cup. Turnovers conceded 11 from the Pumas, 14 for the Cheetahs. If you look at the defense, the Cheetahs had to work a lot harder on the defense, and especially if you look at the individual stats, it will tell a big story. But they also did miss more tackles. So the Pumas made 64 tackles and missed 10, whilst the Cheetahs made 98 tackles and missed 13. The Pumas won 6 turnovers, the Cheetahs won 5. At the breakdown, the Pumas had a rucks 1 percentage of 51%, whilst the Cheetahs had 39. The Pumas won 10 mauls, Cheetahs won 13. The maul was the big thing last night. It really was a battle of the maul. I think it was 3 tries from the Cheetahs were from rolling mauls, and the Pumas also, especially that first try. I mean, it was just a huge effort from both packs. And then if you look at the set pieces, the Pumas lost Cheetahs didn't lose one. They both won 4 scrums. Neither side lost a scrum. So it was a very tight battle between the forwards, which is why the game in the end was so tight. And even if you look at the discipline, 30 penalties conceded by the Pumas to 12 of the Cheetahs. So it really wasn't much to separate both of the sides. If you look at individual players, Andise Lentile was the man of the match, and very rightly so. He's such a hard worker. He's a very, very exciting player, and I think he's definitely got to be on the Springbok radar. Him and Marco van Staden are really putting their hands up in that number 6 jersey, and you know, South Africa's so blessed, always been so blessed with loose forwards. I mean, you think about how good our loose forwards have been over the years. Even now, you know, you've got P-Step Toy, he's not even playing at the moment, but there are still so many players in and around which are really pushing. You know, so you got Joanna Augustus really pushing for the number 8 spot after Dwayne Vermeulen. You know, you think of Vincent Ntuku is coming through for the Lions. Marco van Staden and Andise Lentile are playing really well. Sika Mozanoche is playing some very good rugby. So some very good loose forwards across the country. and it's a very good position for the Springboks to have. But yeah, so Andisa Nsila, he carried the ball 3 times, made 21 meters. His defense is usually very solid. He made 6 tackles, but did not miss 1 tackle and made a turnover. But if you look on the attack, look, not a lot of running meters overall because it was quite a tight game. You know, it wasn't a very free-flowing game, you know, where a lot of the wings have had lots to do. But I think in a game, for the Cheetahs, Jean-Ray Rudolph is always that ever-present ball carrier. He made 9 carries across the game, really worked hard, including 6 clean breaks. So, you know, he's become immense for the Cheetahs and really sort of shored up that loose trio. For the Pumas, the hard work, I mean, Leroux Roots makes himself available all the time. Peter Jansen from Ference, also a very able ball carrier. Pumzile Makundwana also made 9 carries. And Willie Engelbrecht, who got a yellow card, which was quite, I mean, look, the Cheetahs did score during the yellow card period, but he then came on and scored himself. So you could say he made amends. In regards to if it was a yellow card, it's difficult. Look, I mean, it was a tackle on Jean-Ray Rudolph, if I'm correct. And Rudolph was going down and was kind of like, the issue is always the arms, you know, because there always seem to be clashes with the head, which is always deemed foul play, which I always think is a bit harsh and a bit difficult that you're sort of always saying that it's foul play. But, you know, players need to be very, very cognizant that when they tackle, that the arm comes around and actually does wrap around the player, because that is the issue, is that people are leading with the shoulder and the arm doesn't come around. If the arm doesn't come around, then suddenly it's a shoulder charge, which is why he did go into the bid, but he did come on and make amends. Looking at the defense, Carl Wegner was tireless for the Cheetahs. He made 14 tackles, he missed just 1. I also thought that Dries Swanepoel and Harm Nisi, 8 and 7 tackles respectively. They worked very hard in the midfield there, but the Cheetahs had to work very hard on defense. And I think, apart from Marnus van der Merwe, who had a bit of a made 4 tackles and missed 4 tackles, it was generally a very good defensive performance. On the Pumas side, Willie Engelbrecht made the most tackles with 8. He also won a turnover as well. But the turnovers were interesting because there were a lot of turnovers won by the Pumas. The likes of Simon Westrad, Daniel Martins, Willie Engelbrecht, Wayne van der Bank, Eric Cornier, and Luther Obi all made turnovers last night. So it was a very interesting game, to be honest, and maybe not the most attractive game to watch or the most sort of free-flowing game that we really like. But, you know, sometimes you just get those games where it's just all about the forwards and all about, you know, that just trying to sort of out-muscle each other. So it was a very big victory for the Cheetahs because a loss for them would have pretty much taken them out to the top 4 contention. Whereas if the Pumas had beaten the Cheetahs, suddenly they would have been closing in on the Cheetahs and they could have tried and sort of pipped them for 5th place potentially. So in the grand scheme of things, it's probably quite nice that the Cheetahs won because it does sort of open the competition up a bit. It means that the Lions have got a much more incentive to win tonight, to try and keep that 8-point lead on the Cheetahs, whereas a loss tonight with the Lions having a couple of tricky games coming up against the Bulls as well, suddenly means that, you know, they've got a lot to play for and they can't afford to slip up anywhere. So for the competition's sake, it was probably a good thing the Cheetahs won, but it was just good to see a close game, to be honest, and good to see the Pumas keep standing up. I think they're a much better side than the log position shows. You know, Jimmy Stonehouse has a very good ability of being able to get the most out of players, and they are struggling with quite a lot of injuries, and they're still every week pitching up and proving to be quite a difficult side to break down, which is what you want to see. You want to see a competitive Currie Cup. You don't want it to be 4 teams every year being the same 4 teams. You want to see competitive across the way, and I keep saying that if South African rugby is to really sort of regenerate itself, we want to be having a 10-team Currie Cup, you know. Have a 10, let's get back to let's move to a franchise system or a privately owned system where you've got clubs or franchises or whatever, but instead of being a Super Rugby franchise, we just have these elite teams where you have a Currie Cup and you have a second division and you just play through the ranks so that somebody can go and start a side, you know, get some really good players, and let's try and get ourselves 8-10 strong unions across the country. You know, I think that we probably need to start moving away from being so provincialized, to be honest. But I'm actually going to do a video on the entire thing of trying to relook at the rugby landscape, because at the moment I just don't think it's working. I think it's quite archaic in many ways, and you know, there's been a lot of calls to privatize rugby. I think if you do privatize, it opens up a lot of different avenues which can help sort of regenerate and try and revive rugby within South Africa. But let me know what you thought of the game in the comments below. We will be live tonight for the Lions versus Sharks at Emirates Airline Park. It should be a cracker of a game. I think I went Lions by 7, but it's a very difficult game to pick, and it should be very entertaining. So please do come and hang out. Please do subscribe to the channel. Please do smash a like. Jump in the comments, let me know what you thought of the game, and I will chat to you very, very soon.